So the first thing I did was I went into the Wave Supply Wyatt X Taz Fallout bank, and I pulled up this Ivy guitar. I wrote out this chord progression for it, and this is what that sounds like. On this guitar, I have the default preset for Fruity Love Filter, which basically just takes out a lot of the high end and makes it more in the background. I have a default reverb and a small delay I changed the feedback to ping pong and the pan to -100, so then if you listen to it, it'll kind of like bounce between your ears in the delay. The next thing I pulled up this Dirty 56 Strat Plus guitar from X-Band, and I made this pattern for it. This is what it sounds like. On this, I have Wider. It's a free plugin. All it does is it makes it wider in your headphones. I added a reverb, just the basic reverb. I added a delay, and I did the same thing as the other one. I changed it to ping pong and the panning to -100, so it bounces between your ears. I have one EQ that gets rid of a lot of the low end, and another EQ that cuts a lot of the higher frequencies. The next thing I did was My computer's gonna crash, oh no. The next thing I did was I pulled up this Sine Moog bass, and I played the bass notes of the other melodies, and this is what that sounds like. Here's a good trick for when you're writing out a bass melody with a sine bass. What I did was I selected every note except for the last note, and I zoomed in really far, and holding Alt, I dragged it over just one, so then instead of playing the sound it plays at the beginning, like the attack there, if you drag it over one, it'll just slide into the next note. On the bass, I have nothing. The last melodic element for the first part of the beat is I pulled up an Omnisphere, this bluesy lead. It's from the Spectrasonics bank. This is what that sounds like. On this guitar, I have nothing. I panned it to the right a little bit, and I turned the volume down. And so this is what the beat sounds like now with the melodic elements. Now for the drums, I did something a little different from most hip-hop beats. I went into the Wave Supply 6 God drum kit, and I pulled up this Vibrant Loop 1. And I looped that drum pattern, and I also layered these two snares on top of each other. And this is what those sound like together. I downloaded this free Music Radar instant fill samples. It was completely free, and it has a lot of good stuff. I pulled up 2 different fills. I put them on the second bar, like every other bar I put one. And the first 3 are the same sample. For 2 of them, I panned it to the right and I pitched it down 100 cents. And for the other one, I panned it to the left and I pitched it down 400 cents. For the last fill, what I did was I just turned it down a little bit, and then I linked the pan to this automation clip so it would pan between your ears. And this is what those sound like. And the last thing I have for this first beat is I actually pulled up the Carousel Vox loop, which is the loop that was used in the song Carousel by Travis Scott. I found it in this Astroworld drum kit, and this is what it sounds like. I just pitched it down a little bit and I turned the volume way down. And so this is what all the drums sound like together. So that was the first beat. Let me go ahead and pull up the part 2 and I'll be right back. Okay, for part 2, I kept the same key and BPM. I probably should have not done that, but I did anyway. The first thing I pulled up was this Metro ARP from the Wave Supply eTrue Cosmic Bank, and this is what that sounds like. It's the same chord progression and melody as the first beat. On this ARP, I have a wider, I have a reverb, and I have a sound godizer. The next melodic element I have is this ooh choir from X-Band, and I played the bass melody, and this is what that sounds like. On this, I have nothing. The next melodic element I have is this phasing Europad from Omnisphere. It is a EDM-y kind of sound, but I just put a lot of effects on it, and this is what that sounds like. On this, I have an EQ, which just gets rid of a lot of the low end and some high end. And I have Endless Smile on it. This is what really gives it the effect. This is what it sounds like without it. And with it, it makes it sound a lot more pretty. And then I have I don't know why I put a limiter on this, but just a basic limiter. Then I have this bass melody. I used the Nice Moog bass from Omnisphere, I believe, yep. And this is what that sounds like. And on this, I have an EQ to get rid of some of the high end. The last melodic element I have is I pulled up this E-piano, the synth EP from X-Band, and I laid out the melody, the chord progression, and I added this little end bit. This is for the outro of the entire song, and this is what that sounds like. And so this is what all of the melodic elements sound like together. And now on to the drums. The first drum I have is I pulled up the 808 and I laid out this pattern. To make this 808 sound the way it does, I added an envelope to it, where I left the decay, sustain, and release the same, but I got rid of almost all the attack, I have just a tiny bit, and then I set the hold to max. The next drum I have for this is the Snare Pattern. This is what it sounds like. For this, as you can tell, I have a non-traditional snare pattern. I moved some of them over, and I have these accent notes. I just felt like if I had a normal snare pattern, it would kind of take away from the beat and the ending. The next thing I have is I pulled up this hat, and I used one of the hi-hat midis from this Wonder Girl Life drum kit, and this is what that sounds like. The next thing I have is I have this kick, which just follows the 808 pattern. I have a few notes in here that are not in the 808 pattern just to give it some spice, but for the most part, it's all just copying the 808 pattern. And the final thing I have for this beat is I have this tempo automation clip to where it turns the tempo down right here, as you can tell, which gives it kind of a retard effect towards the end. And that is everything for this beat. Alright, I guess I will go back to the other project and let the whole thing play out.